Hello and welcome, everyone, to another episode of Jen and Ringo's Bizarre Affray. Jen and John's Bizarre Affray.
Now coming at you monthly.
Yes, now coming at you monthly. Welcome back to Jen and Jake's Bizarre Affray, the competitive recommendation show where we test our knowledge of each other and our friendship in the process. How was that? Was that good?
I think that was wonderful. I think you're wonderful, Jen.
Oh boy.
So today we're going to be talking about the first round of recommendations after we did our sort of celebratory Gen 1. So now let's torture Jake section. And now we are back in the spirit of things. And now that we've got monthly episodes, that does also open a new window of opportunities for us to recommend each other things that are perhaps a bit bigger in scale. So hopefully that will make up for the fact that you not get as much stuff from us in the meantime. However, the recommendation I got from Jen last time was the classic film from John Cassavetes, Opening Night. You recommended this to me because the other favorite Cassavetes of yours, and from what I've come to understand, kind of the most underrated of his catalog is Killing of a Chinese Bookie, which is the movie of his that I had seen before this, and the only movie of his that I had seen before this. So why recommend me opening night, Jen?
I wanted to start this arc out with something kind of in between the way that I have done recommendations on this show because I love just throwing out a movie sometimes and seeing what you think of it. But this one in particular, I think has a lot of overarching elements that we've talked about on other videos, things that we've discussed on this show appear in opening nights. And in the same way that with the Mean Girls musical, I said that it has possibly the largest amount of things of my pet peeves. Opening night is kind of the opposite, where many of my favorite things about cinema as an art form appear in opening night. If you want a template, a starter pack of things about movies that I love, opening night is covering a lot of ground. And that's a rare thing for me because I usually have a lot of disparate interests, but so many of them collided the first time that I watched this movie a few years ago when I was getting really into Cassavetes. This would have been also during the pandemic and the time that I watched Wings of Desire for the first time. I watched all of the five films that are in the John Cassavetes box set. I watched movies that were outside of that box set, like Gloria, and I still need to see Love Streams, but
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
watched other movies that I just got obsessed with John Cassavetes, Jenna Rollins, and Peter Falk as and their troupe as
Hmm.
individuals beyond even Cassavetes' own filmography. So I was like watching random movies that they appeared in together and looking at Jenna Rollins' later work and looking at some stuff that Ben Gazzara was in just because I have a friend, shout out to Madeline Carey, local Louisville DJ and longtime friend of mine who introduced me to the John Cassavetes oeuvre and by extension introduced me to this film, which is my favorite of his and one of my favorite movies ever made. So this comes at a very particular time for Cassavetes. This is after his biggest brush with mainstream appeal, that is A Woman Under the Influence, that is a big Oscar contender, lands Jenna Rollins her Oscar, but John Cassavetes is still that guy who wants to make movies with his friends who are also incredible artists.
Hmm.
And that just gives him an incredible profile to me. Like I'm incredibly fascinated by how much he was able to work within this circle of very close collaborators, his wife and his best friends, to make some of the best movies of the 70s that, for me, define a kind of American neo-realism that
Yep.
is present in all of your dad's favorite movies. There is no Rocky, there is
Yep.
no The Godfather
Nope.
without what Cassavetes takes from neorealism in things like French and Italian cinema and applies it to the New York Strip,
Yep.
because I feel like that aesthetic object is so important. The idea of the New York movie is something that there's so much goddamn discourse about. And I love it. I love New York movies. There are many great ones. But John Cassavetes is kind of the OG of making great New York movies. And Opening Night is a great example of that. But the thing that takes Opening Night past the neo-realist love that I have for it and the love that I have for Cassavetes and Rollins as industry figures is that this is one of the most compelling character dramas
Oh,
I've ever seen, because this is secretly a gothic film in disguise.
I'm so glad you said that so I didn't sound crazy when I said it too, because this movie is every bit as much of a ghost story as it is anything else. And that was kind of what took me by surprise. And you know what? Like with Wings of Desire, I am dispensing with all formalities here so we can just cut to the fucking chase and not beat around the bush, because this movie is fucking incredible. I have seen four
Yay!
four new movies this year that I've given 5 stars. Wings of Desire, The Red Shoes, The Yellow Submarine, and this. And opening night is the best way I can describe this movie is that it is a neutron star of ideas that exist within the entertainment and artistic industries. This is about everything that has to do with that in the way that movies like Birdman since have also tried to do, or even there is a bit of something like 8.5 in something like this, where there is kind of something celebratory, but at the same time, the darkness beneath it is way more of a focal point of what's going on. So the kind of premise with opening night is that this sort of troupe of actors who are putting together a play for this place in New York, they are going to, like, they're basically going through a bunch of rehearsals and performances to prepare for opening night. And on one of these rehearsals, someone outside of the establishment that they are setting up in basically comes and is like a huge fan of who the female lead of this play, and she's like asking for an autograph, and like the way the scene is filmed is so like frantic. It's got so many close-ups and like it's barely in focus half the time, and you just get this sense of like just frenzied adoration for this girl who kind of looks a little similar to our lead in a couple of ways, and she dies. They try to get away from her because she's a little bit of a fanatic, and then they kind of drive away, and then she's behind them, and bam, gets hit by a car. And basically, this is the inciting incident of the movie because it really only seems to matter to one person. And that one person is our lead, Jenna Rollins, who plays Myrtle Gordon, who, okay, I've never seen Jenna Rollins in a movie before.
I'm so glad that you watched Chinese Bookie before this so that you would not be prepared for how good this performance is.
Oh my God. Like, breathlessly, one of the top 5 leading performances I have ever watched in anything. This woman acts as well as I breathe. I like it's stunning how much sort of bandwidth she has to put into this movie, because Jenna Rollins is the movie. You are locked into her perspective. It's her world. Everything is filtered through her, and everything is kind of about her. And basically, it is like, you're doing these rehearsals, you're doing all this stuff, you're going back to your apartment, you're visiting your friends who you're working with, you're going over notes with all this stuff. It's very just kind of stream of consciousness. It's just these people leading up to this moment. But she kind of begins to spiral just because what happens at the start with that girl dying really seems to affect her because she is somebody who is getting a little bit older age-wise, and a lot had to say here about aging actresses and what have you in a Sunset Boulevard kind of way. But the play that they're putting on is about a woman who is concerned with aging. So there's this built-in synecdoche of her having to confront the thing that she does not want to confront and doesn't understand and refuses to understand in many different ways and just outright rejects. And so as she sort of keeps going, you just kind of see her slowly lose her mind. Like every single performance, she becomes less and less tethered to reality, and everybody around her, some of them react accordingly, and some of them really don't. Some of them are bizarrely kind of cruel, and it was like it kind of threw me for a loop because I was like, the Cassavetes, what he's so fantastic at is realism. You watch this movie and it feels like a guy is holding a camera in front of real people and is struggling to contain the frame because nobody really shoots movies like Cassavetes did. Like even now, like you can probably compare some of the techniques that the softies use, but they don't go as far as anybody goes in opening night here because it is all about like, I mean, the shot compositions are very frequently stunning, but they are also just the sequences of these miasma of shots that feel kind of spatially and geographically incoherent in ways that make you sympathize with how little control is happening within the characters' agencies of who you're looking at. So whenever there's the up front, the close, the camera that's just kind of moving around, it is actually super involving. Like that stuff is very intentional and very, very well deployed. And as this kind of keeps happening, you kind of get a more and more intimate look at all these characters, especially the ones that seem kind of bizarrely cruel, like the guy who's the director of the play, played by Ben Gazzara, who plays Manny. And I mean, he's awful. I mean, at first he's just fucking horrible. He's literally only able to speak to his actress in like show business and screenwriting terms. He doesn't talk to people like a human being. And you're like, that's so strange because everything else about this movie is so like intimate and sweaty and actually human. And then there's this guy who just kind of comes out here and he's all like, he's very well read, but he's also just an asshole and he's really crass and he's mean. And it's like, John Cassavetes is kind of he's writing about a version of himself, isn't he? It's like there's this guy who literally cannot think of anything outside the context of the artistic process. And anytime someone floats away from his idea of the artistic process, he just doesn't understand and doesn't try to. He just gives up. He is a guy who's like, the show must go on. We got to keep going. We got to keep going. Yeah, that girl died. Whatever the fuck. And Jenna Rollins is being strung along this whole time. And okay, here's when I'm going to tell you that this is the moment I knew I was going to fall in love with this movie, and this is probably the best new movie scene I think I've seen all year. And I mean that in like it dwarfs the 15-minute long sequence in the red shoes that absolutely blew my eyeballs out of my skull. Anything in Wings of Desire, anything in all those movies that I've seen.
Oh my
This
God.
this is my favorite like single moment I've witnessed in film this year. And it's just the insanely quiet, insanely uneventful moment where Jenna Rollins goes to the dressing room after just, like a very frantic sort of set of circumstances. She goes to the dressing room and she just kind of sits down and she's looking at herself in the mirror, and you can just like it's etched onto her face every single worry and problem that this woman has experienced thus far. And she's just sort of examining herself, and she has this look in her eye that's completely inexplicable, but it's just so sad and forlorn. And then the camera just kind of keeps going to the right, and you're like, and then the girl who was hit by the car is right there. No sound, no nothing, and it's just like it's this moment where it feels like it's a literal rug pull. It feels like gravity stops in this moment, and you're like, and it's chilling. It is a gothic folk tale hidden in this theater about this woman who is like succumbing to her tragic fatal flaw. And it's amazing. It's like there's almost a like portrait of Dorian Gray kind of thing going on with General Rollins in this movie and the character that she performs as. And like the way this movie oscillates between modes is so fucking outstanding. Like it will just suddenly cut to them doing a version of the performance, and I am as invested watching the fictional version of this play out as I am in the rest of everything. Like there are moments where you like Cassavetes plays with tension so expertly in these scenes because you don't know the script to this play. So Rollins could be flipping her lines like literally all the time. And when you see them sort of perform it over and over again, you're like, oh, she messed up there. Like, oh, this person didn't take their direction in this moment. Like, again, if you're a theater-minded person or a film-minded person, this is really going to leap out at you. But like, there are moments where he will hone in on her specifically, and you're just kind of like really uncomfortable because you're like, oh fuck, did she forget her lines? Is she drunk? Like, is what's going on here? Is she just gonna fall apart in the middle of the stage while all these people are watching? And it's nerve shredding. Like, Killing of a Chinese Bookie had moments of like nail biting tension in it, but they don't have a magnetic fixture like this cast that just gets you so deep and involved with them. Every character in this movie is essential to the greater portrait of what opening night is.
I love the commentary about aging all throughout this movie
Oh, yes.
because it comes up in, the play within the movie, and so it comes up in the dialogue all the time because the whole movie characters are arguing about what it means to get old, what it
Yeah.
means to age, or how old they actually are, right? Myrtle is arguing with Sarah, the playwright, this much older woman, talking about ultimately Myrtle's frustration comes with the fact that she sees this character as an extension of herself, but is not satisfied with it.
Hmm.
She's not satisfied with the characters. She's criticizing the script, right? She's not
Hmm.
satisfied with the character's range, and
Everyone
she's
has
saying
criticisms of each other in the artistic process. Like we have the playwright, we have the director, we have the actors, and all of them have their own version of what this is in their head that conflicts with everyone else, and they're constantly arguing about it.
and Myrtle at one point thinks that this character is going to be indicative of her career because
Hmm.
she gets in this paradox in her head where it's like, well, if I play the old lady,
I'll
then
be
I'm the
seen as
old
one.
lady.
I am
So
immortalized as the old lady. And like fucking all these years later, that's still fucking true. That still happens to actresses these days. If they get a high profile role for playing somebody who's a little bit older, they are pigeonholed for the rest of their career.
that happens, ironically enough, to her with The Notebook. If she hadn't had any more of a prolific career than she already had, being in that movie and that movie being the cultural moment that it was, led to like a whole generation of people that watched that movie and don't know who she is, but then was sad when she died.
Yep. It weird, very, very fucking weird. And I mean, like, just the way that this movie is able to convey like the interiority of its characters is amazing. And it does it mostly with just the dialogue, but also, I mean, like the performances in this are stellar. Like Cassavetes, I think that's kind of what he's known for first and foremost, is that he is just the best director of a performance that you can possibly fathom. Like, I really like from the merit of the two movies I have seen alone, I really couldn't contest that claim because I think I said it to a bunch of like my friends after I watched it for like the night that I actually watched it, and I was just like, would it be insane of me to say that like every named character in this movie is a better performance than anything I've seen in recent cinemas in like the last 5 to 10 years? And I say that as someone who is not like, oh, acting is getting worse. Like, no, it's just that good here. Like Cassavetes is in this movie himself, and he doesn't at any point ever feel like he's just like, oh, I'll just play this guy because I'm here. Like, no, this guy needed to be John Cassavetes. I don't know how this movie works if it's not. And the way that they play with the sort of chemistry of the way that the actors have to interplay with each other on stage and off stage, and how that kind of affects their relationship in very weird ways. And it makes you, it's like Jenna Rollins has to constantly view every character through like a different prism in this movie. And she just continually has to keep trying to adjust herself and fix herself and perform maintenance on herself as she is like literally falling apart in front of these people. And they just refuse to engage or help her because they, on some level, they're like, what am I gonna do? But at the same time, you're like, I don't know, fucking help her up when she's drunk, jackass. Because, yeah, fucking Ben Gazzara is an S-class asshole in this. But I love the kind of asshole that he is because he is. I knew this guy in fucking college. I knew this screenwriter and how obnoxious he was and how much of a control freak he was and how little he even seemed to understand the own material and how that actually didn't even really end up mattering all that much because the actors understood it anyway. So he ends up being a bizarre middleman, but he is essential to what the end product still ends up being. And it's very thorny. This is a thorny movie that doesn't really give you any answers to anything. It doesn't really present any clear-cut dilemmas. Every single problem that the characters encounter in this is the result of the actions of another person who they can't change the outcome of who they are. This is just a bunch of people who are so set in their ways and can't divert from the tracks. It is watching two trains slowly come together, except it's not two trains, it's six trains. And then they all converge on each other at the end of the movie where they actually have to do the performance of the opening night, which is just like the extended sequence of the whole thing, them just doing it. You gotta have brass fucking balls to do this, man. Like, are you kidding me? You have to make an
Birdman does
original.
not come anywhere close to how good this is.
Oh, absolutely not. Those, like, every single scene where they're on stage in this movie is just fucking, like, locked in. Like, even Cassavetes also understands that, like, he's able to always put you in a position with his camera where you innately understand what you're supposed to be seeing and why. Like whenever they're on stage, he positions the camera as an audience member. You are being blocked by the person in front of you, and the camera is moving back and forth with their head like you would be actually sitting there watching this play, and you would have to be like, and it's like that is immersive when you're in a cramped room backstage and everything's out of focus and the camera's kind of going like this and you can only hear like one person. Like that's what it's like to stand in those rooms and to prepare. Like again, if you've ever done like a school play or something, this is going to open up some old wounds for you if it was particularly traumatic in any way, shape, or form. But I mean, that's the thing, is that the movie builds up to that, and you've more or less seen like half the scenes that they end up performing in this. So you have a good idea of how they're supposed to go. But because there is such a lack of like time doesn't really seem to matter much in this movie. It just kind of skips ahead whenever
There's
it wants to.
a lot of very abrupt jump cutting in this that also adds
Yes.
to the unease of the whole thing.
Oh, I mean, like there are several moments in this movie where I was like, oh, Jesus. Like it is just that kind of movie where it constantly keeps you on your toes. And so when it builds to this final performance, you have a solid framework of how it's supposed to go. And naturally, like, cannot stress enough, this is like one of the lowest second act low points I've ever seen, because it's just like you look at Rollins before she goes out there and it's just like, guys, what are you fucking doing? You have to send someone else out there. She's gonna die. Like she looks like she's about to walk out stage and fucking fall and then crack her skull open. What are you even doing? And so you're feeling this just unfucking bearable tension as she goes out on screen. And then she starts kind of flubbing it, but then she kind of starts winning the crowd back over sometimes by being a little bit glib and kind of objecting to herself. And then everybody's like, eh. And what I love too is that like every time there's like a screening for people to come and see the performance, everyone always reacts to the performance in a way you don't expect. Like you'll hear
Yeah.
somebody like leave it, like that, like there's one where like Rowlands just absolutely flubs her entire thing and it's a disaster and everyone freaks out. And there's like three people who are leaving it and they're like, yeah, that was good. It's like, you know what? That is the state of affairs. Like that is still the case. Like there are so many like people who
That's the
I'm sure,
reality of making art, man. Like you're gonna
yeah.
think that and you might have even, you're gonna think that you completely screwed up, but somebody is gonna walk out and
And
just go, "Yeah, I thought that was great."
and that's the difference between this and Birdman is that Birdman is a movie that is about pursuing your artistic ambitions. It is a movie that is about saying, fuck everything, I'm doing what I'm doing. Opening Night is a movie about that, doing that and discovering that you kind of have to become a complete fucking asshole to do that. And in the wake of it, this is the consequence. This wreckage here is what happens when all of these egos collide and all of them come together and they're trying to facilitate a kind of simulacrum of reality that they are so desperately trying to understand on so many different levels. And like, again, the screenwriter and the director, they all have different interpretations of these characters. And at the end of the day, you're like, what does it even matter if the lines are all the same and it's the same person performing it? It really does make you get in your own head about why these positions in filmmaking or in art even exist to begin with. Because, like Joe Schmo on the street does not understand what a producer or an executive producer is, or if there's a difference between the two of those things. They don't know what a director does. I mean, cinematographer, yeah, you're the guy who holds the camera, I guess. Lighting, you hold the fucking thing. Like that's what that is to most people. So this is a movie where you get to discover that all of these jobs are way fucking more complicated than any of that sounds on paper.
Being at the head of a theatrical production, and I say this as somebody who's knows people that do this for a living and did it for a little while myself. It's it's a relationship. It's a working relationship unlike any you will ever have if you get into that.
The lines become blurred so quickly. And honestly, that's what the movie is about the blurring of the lines of just like, you got Ben Gazzara and his wife and like, oh man, fucking cringe city whenever those two are on screen together. You're just like, oh man, I really don't think you guys are good for each other. Like this is not healthy at all. Like he is projecting so hard and is almost just completely ambivalent to her very existence and she is just sitting there making it so abundantly clear that she is trying to communicate with him and he is just not having it. He's no selling the entire thing. He's so wrapped up in his head. But at the same time, with how high the stakes are in the movie, you understand why he's so focused on this shit because everything's riding on it. All these people are depending on him, and at the end of the day, the buck stops with him, and the critics are going to go after him. If the play ends up being bad, he's going to be the one to shoulder all of the blame, and that makes him basically just give him carte blanche to be an asshole to everyone throughout this entire fucking movie, and you just want to go up to him and be like, "Fuck that! Shut up! Shut up!" in the best way possible. He's incredible in this movie. Just the best. Even better than Killing of a
Something,
Chinese Bookie, I would say, which is also a very good performance.
yeah, I love Gazera in this. Something that's interesting about the psychological horror element of this movie is that the and this goes for the dramatic elements as well, where like moments that this movie could punctuate its cleverness just don't happen.
No.
And whenever you get to a moment where there's an encounter with this apparition of this girl, there's no denouement to scary parts of this
Yeah,
movie.
there's no pomp
Things
and
just
circumstance to the presentation of it at all. It just
somebody walks
happens.
in and then things just keep happening. And
It
there's
is
no
played completely straight. It's just like there was a ghost there. Like, sorry, and we're moving on. Like, and it's like that's such a beautiful kind of way of illustrating just how locked into their own perspectives these characters are, is that there's a literal fucking ghost that is haunting them that they're ignoring all the time. Like,
and I was so frustrated with how this element was handled in did you ever see Tar?
no, I didn't actually. But I know, wait, I know what you're talking about though.
Okay.
Yeah. I've seen screenshots of like
Yeah.
the background like things and like I
Yeah,
got the impression.
Tar has like a Haunting of Hill House find the hidden ghosts thing
Yes,
going
that's what I
on
meant. Yes.
that never gets like brought up out loud. But the thing is that this movie is about her seeing things. There's a
Mhm.
whole subplot where she wants to go see a spiritualist to attempt to contact the ghost of the girl, but she doesn't actually go through with it. And so in the gothic fable encounter with the sublime of it all, that's also a failure of her character, is that she
Yeah.
can't actually engage with this thing that was trying to communicate with her, whether it was a product of her own imagination or something actually supernatural.
And I think too in that scene, something I found really funny about it is that like there's a couple people who are with the spiritualist. And there's like this person who is like getting up and like getting things for people, and the camera just like keeps floating over to her away from these guys. And it's like it's trying to tell you that this isn't really important or meaningful to the people who are trying to assist Jenna Rollins. Like maybe even that this is some kind of grift of some sort, but it's just like the camera is not prioritizing these people in this scene in any way, shape, or form. And you are trained to watch this movie and completely understand what any given scene like what character it directly corresponds to, just because this again the spatial dynamics of this movie, like the scene geography of this movie is nonsense, and it's intentionally nonsense because that's how it feels. It frazzles you in the same way that Jenna Rollins is frazzled and can't navigate and is drunk and is frustrated, and like for every bit of a mess as she is, she's still so well realized. Yeah, you can take a character like her and just sort of make her into this kind of de facto like martyr or this sort of like pincushion for suffering. And you never get that. There's a real fucking human being underneath all of that who's just having a really fucking hard time dealing and coping with all of this bullshit in her life. And you just want her to get sober so badly. You're like, please stop drinking the gin. It's not gonna help, dude. It's a depressant. Please, God. But it lets Jenna Rollins go the fuck off, so who am I to complain?
I love this movie. I love it so much.
It's just kind of a movie about everything about art. It's a movie about authorial intentionality. It's a movie about performance. It's a movie about commerce and art. It's a movie about how the dissonance between how an audience receives a work and the work that's actually put into making something. It's about the process. And that's what I love. When something is about the process and it understands the process and it's able to illustrate it to you effectively within a story, that's what this does. It just sort of bobs and weaves in and out of itself and also just sort of gives you a great look behind the curtain. Like this is like if somebody wants to understand what being like a director or like being on a film set is even like, I would tell them to watch opening night because yeah, the sets that I've worked on in the past, they were a lot fucking like this. Thankfully, they were not as indebted to alcohol and probably cocaine as this was, just because, I mean, it was the 70s and Cassavetes was Cassavetes. I can't imagine that that didn't play a factor, but who knows? This is 2.5 hours of just edge of your seat shit. And I mean that. Like, I don't mean that in the glib, like, blockbuster, like, oh, what's gonna, like, no, I was like
This movie
locked
is
into this.
unsettling from minute one. The narration with the superimposition of the little slides and the spooky chords in this movie. The score in this is really
Yes.
cool.
It actually reminded me of all things. The way this movie starts reminded me of Ingmar Bergman. He always starts his movies with like breaking the fourth wall in a way that you can only tell if you're explicitly looking for it. Like Hour of the Wolf, my favorite Ingmar Bergman movie, literally starts with an interview with the actress, and you hear all of the people in the background being like, go set left, like fucking like marker, like all this kind of shit, and you're just like, Did they like just leave the camera on and just leave it in the movie? But it's like what it does is that it makes you very keenly aware of all of the work that is put into just what you're looking at in front of you. You just hear the bustling noise of the background that informs it. Like Persona does something very similar with how it kind of frames it through the camera, I guess, is how it like it keeps showing this thing of like it presents images to you in a way that will only make sense once you like watch it a second time. And frankly, I really want to watch this a second time, but also I might need like I mean I might need an edible to like keep my heart rate down because this is one of those movies where it's like I mean it is like an uncut gems where you're like bum 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 for 2 straight hours. It is adrenaline. And man, like I love few things better than something that can do that as effectively as this can. Because really, when you try to do that, it's go big or go home. You either fail or you succeed. This succeeds better than anything I've ever fucking seen, frankly. I can't think of a better example of something that does this, what this movie does better than it. It just it doesn't exist. I haven't seen it.
Oh, so much fun to revisit this. So
Yeah,
glad I got to show this to you. And
that's the full
so
five.
glad that I get to start this arc off with a delicious 5 points.
And you know what? You fucking earned it. I'm not gonna front for a single fucking second. If you throw shit like this at me, then I'm simply going to bend over and take it. Speaking of which,
You can't say stuff like that.
can't I though? Can't I?
Ugh,
Jen, this was never a race
it's
to the
gross. You're
bottom
making
or
this
to the
like
top.
gross
This
and
was always who was going to become the villain of this podcast first.
yeah, but you
And
don't have to
I
make
will
it
be
like
damned
gross
if I
and
let you
squelchy.
beat me.
Oh boy. We are tied, I guess, now that we're at like one win, one loss, one draw for the arcs,
That's
yeah?
true. That is very true. And so this becomes a race to see who will slot which archetype, who is the face, who is the heel. So tell me, Jen, how have you been spending your weeks?
So Jake's recommendation for me for the start of this arc was the discography of Jaden Smith.
Doesn't it feel wrong to say that, to attribute that word to him? Isn't it very strange?
I
The
mean,
body of work of Jaden Smith.
stop it. You're gonna get, oh God. So the
Look,
oeuvre
I'm not gonna feel bad about Jaden Most Trees Are Blue Smith. I refuse to accept any guilt.
is the grass really blue in Kentucky, Dad?
I don't know, go eat it and see.
I feel like an idiot. Jaden Smith is the son of Will Smith, and he was born famous, and he's an actor, and he's a professional, famous person from birth.
He is a
I
he was a born influencer. He has an anime, Jen, don't you remember?
I do. I do remember Neo Yokio, although I never watched it.
I
Um,
did. I don't. Oh, Morgan and I got drunk and watched that. That's why. Yeah, I wouldn't have done that sober. Yeah.
Jaden Smith, actor, producer, now rapper, songwriter,
Owner
uh,
of Boxed Water.
owner of, yeah, some water company. I
Yep,
don't know what that,
apparently. Hey, he's doing
whatever.
philanthropy. I good on him. I won't say any bad things.
We've been here before, okay? But the last time that we were here talking about a Nepo baby on this podcast, we talked about Max Landis, or at least the last time we talked about one in this specific way, we talked about Max Landis. And, Max Landis is a guy that, for all his faults, clearly had motion,
Yes.
had motion, had ideas, had consequences.
And hey, some of those ideas were chronicle. And you know what? That's a pretty good idea.
And so when talking about Max Landis, you get to talk about a person who has real material contribution to his field.
Yes.
And so the thing that makes Jaden Smith difficult to talk about is that normally a project so bombastic, fronted by someone so prolific, would have something memorable about it.
I can
Would
think of a couple things, but not many.
a project of this size would invite intrigue into the cultural trends that perhaps produced such a project. Like, I love getting into the weeds of the timeline of the like Disney Channel stars and
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
how the way that people are like insane about reality competition shows like Survivor and Drag Race and whatnot.
Hmm.
I'm a little bit insane about the way that all of the different careers of the different Disney idols affected each other just because that was the like media ecosystem that I was the closest
There's
to
a
when I was
kind
the
of
age.
anthropological lens you can look at it with that I feel like invites intrigue, at least.
There's an anthropology to looking at the output of the Dan Schneiders of the world, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
And
exactly.
so the thing about Jaden Smith's music is that it's in this odd superposition where I want to approach it as forgettable music made by a child for children. But I can't do that because there's so much ambition on display with Jaden Smith's music that it demands to be discussed amongst the real contemporaries of the art world that he attempts to place himself within.
Contemporaries that I think it's worth establishing. The reason I ended up really recommending this, other than I thought it would be really fucking funny, is that Jaden draws from, well, our musical past very, very strongly. And not to mention, I wouldn't recommend a discography like this if it was just boring. If there wasn't ambition, if there wasn't moments in here that made you stop for a moment and go, now, what exactly went into this decision? I wouldn't recommend it. But I revisiting these, I was like, yeah, these albums contain moments, fascinating moments, interesting moments, not always successful moments, but moments nonetheless. And they are surrounded by a lot of nothing.
The thing that I thought was interesting, that I really should have expected given the context, was that with each album you see ambition slowly be drained from the from the
Yeah.
musical equation.
You do? I never even thought about that, but you're so fucking right.
These
Even just from
albums,
sire to heiress, it's like, did something happen in between these two?
the albums get less bold
Mm,
and they
yeah.
get less ambitious. But the thing that's interesting about that is that they become boring, but they still have such extreme problems that it's
Dude.
still obviously bad.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Because my biggest critique and the thing that leads to Jaden Smith's music being interesting is that what Jaden Smith's idea of song structure is so fascinating to me
Does he have an
because
idea of what song structure is?
there's so many moments across this discography where I said to myself, holy shit, there's still 2 minutes in this song.
That is the byline, man. Every song this kid's ever made is just like, oh, there's a minute left of this, huh? Interesting.
So let's start with Sire.
Sire. Yeah, this
So
this album, when it came out, honestly was pretty big. I had people talking to me about this album when it dropped when I was in high school.
this album had motion
Hmm.
because you got to think this is November 2017.
Hmm.
We are post Brockhampton summer. And so it was ripe for somebody like Jaden to come out of the gate with this kind of a project.
And technically, he also appeared on one Mr. Tyler the Creator's Flower Boy. So there's kind of a there's he was really looking to position himself with the Odd Future Brockhampton Kid Cudi, like the alternative hip hop R&B kind of moment. He smartly, he was making all the right choices to do that.
The thing about Sire and the thing about Iris is that there's so many big ideas on this
Oh
that
yes.
you can very easily trace the roots of.
Hmm.
And the thing that makes that fascinating is that it took music that I loved during this era, that as I was learning how to be a critic, I realized were not as beloved as maybe I thought they should be at the age that I was listening to that music. And I had a kind of ideological conflict with myself where I was like, well, do I embrace, for example, my love of 21 Pilots' blurry face as I start to become a critic?
Hmm.
And there was a day where that emo teenager decided to just like shrink a little bit inside of myself.
Happens to us all.
But then revisiting this time period and going back and listening to Sire, I thought to myself, dang it, I was right all along to hold this up because if we did, then maybe we would have known what to do about this thing over here. Because,
Contextually quite important.
yeah, knowing who Jaden Smith is ripping off is kind of important to understanding why these albums don't work.
Yes, 100%.
And a lot of the like real hip hop criticism that was coming Jaden's way was not really addressing how much he was pulling from alternative rock and art pop and alternative R&B in a way that I feel like some of the critical sphere failed to fully address the range of failures of Sire and
Yes,
Iris
yes.
in a way that made me unprepared still almost a decade later for the paths that these two albums would go down.
So now you get it, is that there's moments on these albums that if you don't really have the proper context for, you I mean, I can really only imagine what your reaction was to the openings of both of these, the Sire and Eris albums, Blue and Pink, the suites that start off these albums. I can only imagine how hard that must hit if you are not expecting that.
So, this music sounds expensive.
Very, very.
And that's frankly one of Jaden's best qualities as an artist, is that he makes music that sounds really expensive and gets a lot of glistening instruments and is making very late 2010s playlist friendly type of music in that regard, stuff that sounds better than God, anything that was coming off the shelves at the time. I genuinely mean this.
Yeah.
This music sounds gorgeous,
Oh yes.
but the quality of the production just shines a brighter light on the many flaws underneath it.
Oh, doesn't it just? Golly.
Because every time that Jaden flubs a line or a segue in the instrumentation is not as elegantly composed as it perhaps could be. It sticks out like a sore thumb when it sticks out like when you're playing Guitar Hero and you start missing notes and it starts like yelling at you that you're missing. That's what this album can start to do, especially when not to have a big day moment, but I have to have a little bit of one where just like
Please.
some of the lyrics
Please.
on
Oh,
this
we can't talk
suite,
about these without talking about the lyrics on some of these. I mean, Jesus.
this album, Jaden Smith has a habit of immediately fumbling.
Oh my God, he's really
That
fucking talented at it. Ironic enough.
there were so many moments where I was just like, okay, when is this song gonna turn? And then it would happen eventually. But none more so than in this suite where I was like, oh, this whole experience is just going to be horrendously complicated, isn't it? When
Mm.
you get to the parts on L where Jaden is pulling out genuinely good flows, but starting out verses with songs like Girl, I'm Martin Luther, Martin Luther King.
Girls, I'm Martin Luther. Martin Luther King. Life is hard. I'm Kama Sutra-ing. I'm running through the pain that the youth has been afflicted with. It's just ridiculous that you would kill a kid for some Yeezys. Truly a voice of the generation, honestly. I mean, and it would be one thing if this was like supposed to be a portrait of a spoiled rich kid, because that's not something that these albums and this scene have shied away from. I would say that this exact character portrait is the crux of the two most beloved Frank Ocean albums. It's just that those albums are very, very intelligently written about their very messy protagonist that, does all of the same things and maybe thinks all of the same things that this person does. It's just that they are put in songwriterly ways. And it's funny you make that point about the flows on this because you're right. This is a very like accomplished set. Like he is okay at the art of rapping on this song. I really would like to know where that went after this album specifically because he doesn't ever really recapture his ability to do that. He doesn't really ride production this confidently ever again, and it's baffling to me. Like when you turn on Iris and like you listen to some of that suite and you're just like, why do you sound like you're so tired? You sound so sleepy, my dude. Wake up. You
It
can go
also
buy
doesn't
a
help.
coffee at fucking next to the Air One. Like I know you can afford it. Jesus.
It also doesn't help that he's pulling out a lot of damn era Kendrick flows.
Yeah,
Oh,
uh-huh.
there's a verse on B. You can't even get through one song without snatching the flow from DNA. Are you kidding me?
And here's the thing about that is that I think that you could say at least a similar like grab bag full of things about somebody like the people who were affiliated with Brockhampton at the time is that they were obviously people who were heavily indebted to the early albums of Kanye West and Odd Future, and that's what they based their sound off of. And it sounded like that. It was unmistakable. Those bright, buzzy synths that make up the Odd Future sound and eventually the Tyler the Creator sound. That was what Brockhampton was built out of. The thing is, though, is that I never heard people talk about that like it was a problem. When people talked about the Saturation albums, not a single soul I ever heard say anything like, oh, well, this just sounds like Kanye. Because, I mean, yeah, there's shared DNA, but you don't get the same appeal. You don't listen to Saturation 2 for the same reason that you listen to fucking Graduation. It doesn't mix like that. It suits something completely different. But Jaden doesn't really seem to know what he's doing from a writing perspective. Like he assumes the mantle of an important artist and what he thinks an important artist is and what important artists should say. And that is pretty much the limit of his scope of perspective on these two first records here.
Yeah, it's like it's a the struggle of Sire is the struggle to even attempt to be an artist because I don't understand any of this lore. I don't get it. What is so Sire is like the
The
inner
guy,
emotional soft boy
yeah.
self,
And
and
then
Iris is the blurry face, the dark alter
yeah,
ego, the
he's like
Slim
a cult
Shady.
leader or something, I think I've inferred from what I remember of the
The
narrative loose
and
ends.
the problem, the problem with all that is it's not interesting to talk about because these characters are not fundamentally different from each other.
Or interesting
Jaden,
in and of themselves. There is nothing compelling about the way that they are written or portrayed, if they are written or portrayed at all, which in most instances on most songs they are not.
Jaden, Sire, and Iris do not have distinct voices. They do not appear on songs that sound distinct from each other to
No.
imply some kind of thematic connection between aesthetic and presence of character. It's just all Jaden rapping over a couple different kinds of beats. And but the thing, a compliment that I will give more so to Iris, but Sire has this some as well, is that Jaden does have a wide palette in a way that makes at least the suite on this is interesting in that regard because I'm like, okay, we're doing some hardcore stuff. By the time we get to E, we're doing some really bluesy stuff. We start the album with vocals from Willow that's doing this big melancholy operatic window dressing scene setting that's like if you're young and hungry, I'm gonna let you get away with it, even if it's cliche, because I like seeing it. But
No, I completely agree with
nah, it
you, and I
doesn't.
agree with you on the next album as well, because the opening on that album sounds like a fucking Evanescence ballad, and honestly, I think that's sick as hell. Like, you know what? Sure, man. Nobody else is doing shit like that. Go right ahead. I don't give a fuck if it's cringeworthy. Do it. Go right ahead. Embrace the melodrama. That's all I want.
I like seeing reckless ambition, but the problem is there are so many moments on this album that feel so measured and rote and trite. These albums are all too long.
70 minutes. Sire is 70 minutes. For what reason? Why is there a 10-minute long song on this album? Why? Why? Are you Pink Floyd? Why? Why is Lost Boys like this?
I'm not saying that you can't do it, right? I'm not even saying that you're not allowed. The thing that frustrates me so much about these albums and about Jaden as a songwriter is that I haven't listened to a single Jaden Smith song that I would say has a strong aesthetic concept to it because every song has to have some kind of swing to it, or it's too short or it's too long. And so you either get one verse too many, you get a aesthetic shift where you don't need it, or you get a song that sounds really good and could be really interesting, but for some reason it's only a minute and 50 seconds or 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And then we move on back to the same old that we have been doing. And Jaden gets bogged down in this lo-fi beats. That's the worst that I can describe it, is when it starts to sound like lo-fi beats.
A little bit.
Here's the thing. I'm going to be skipping over a lot of this discography because I can only say it's boring and it's long too many times. So I'm just going to go over some of my
Highlight.
eyebrow-raising moments of the Jaden
Yeah.
Smith discography. How about that? Let's talk about this part on Batman.
Amazing song. What a tune.
The moment, truly the moment. So honestly, I thought to myself throughout the first half of Sire, I was like, okay, I can at least see why this got propped up. I can see the ambition and I can see the want to make something really good and really deep and really meaningful and really, really ambitious as an album because, like, Breakfast, Hope, Falcon, 90. Lost Boy and all 9.5 minutes of it all at least suggest magnitude. And then the second half of Sire just turns into complete gobbledygook
Tedium.
of tedium, of attempts at bangers. You have Batman, you have Icon.
I'm just an icon living. I'm just an icon living. Yeah.
I don't I don't
Have
think I
have
understand.
you seen the Genius video of him on
Yeah,
explaining? Okay, if you all haven't seen it, you need to stop this right now and go and watch it and then
go and
come
watch
back.
that Genius video and then come back and see if you can tell me what he means when he says something about this being before the award show, which I can't.
Wait,
I like tried to understand the timeline of events here by going on the Genius page for
like
this
the
song.
Nickelodeon Kids Choice Awards? Like, what are we
I
talking
can't
about?
tell you what award show he's talking about. That's how bad the annotations on Genius are for this album. Because they're all written by children, Jake. I don't know what award show he's talking about.
Oh, his for his performance in The Karate Kid, perhaps.
For his performance in After Earth.
Uh,
Speaking of bad Genius annotations, this didn't even come from the album, but
oh, you gotta.
one of the funniest things I've heard all week, just on a description of the song Falcon. This alludes to the next song on the album, 90, since most of the songs flow into each other. Falcon is meant to be played before 90.
Oh my God.
And here's the thing, whoever wrote that, I love you. And I
Yes,
hope you're doing well. You
I
tried,
sincerely
you
hope
took
you
the
have.
first step,
Yes, you
and I'm
maybe
so
you're a
proud of you.
professional critic now, and I my heart goes out to you because we all have to take our first step at some point.
I hope that
So,
if you wrote that, you are proud of what you do now.
yes,
Genuinely.
exactly.
But it gave me a laugh.
I probably do have more respect for that annotation than I do have for Sire and Eris on the whole, frankly.
Jaden is weird. He's got weird conspiracy theory beliefs that I don't understand that keep popping up.
Building 7?
Building 7? I feel like a slave. The Illuminati is real. Give me a year and I can write a book that proves it. What are you talking about? He
It's
literally says, the Illuminati is real. Give me a year and I'll write a book proving that the
dog.
Illuminati is real.
I don't, buddy, I know your parents are Scientologists. I know the Illuminati's real. They're not quiet, man. Another reason I find this fascinating is just like from the ground up. This is an opportunity for art to be like this pure, untethered thing. Like you have all the resources, right? Like you just have every tool at your disposal.
That's the point that I've been trying to get at with some of this.
It's just like you have so much. I mean, like you certainly have a hell of a lot more than the fucking Brockhampton boys, all 17 of them hold up in a fucking San Marcos residential neighborhood in Texas had with 3 laptops and a fucking dream. So there needs to be like something like this is the problem with Sire overall for me in that this is an appallingly bad first album. You have taken every risk. You have tried every ambitious inclination that has been made available to you, and you have basically done every little bit of extra-ness that you could possibly do. When what you're supposed to do with your first album is prove that you can make a good fucking album. Like, that's what you want to do. You're supposed to drop an album that proves that I am supposed to listen to your second album. This does not make me want to do that.
One of my favorite moments of Jaden Smith's entire discography that really like gets at the paradox that is his existence in the rap game is this moment on Hope where he starts talking about, fake music basically,
Yeah.
the fake rap, the rap that's not the rap that I do. And
Hmm.
nothing you could possibly do to get me to
Check
refuse
out.
to engage with you is attempts to convince me that you are not just like talented and good at what you do and worth paying attention to, but that you are a solution to some kind of problem in your artistic field.
A fine line between confidence and arrogance.
Why are you insulting my intelligence when I'm here with you right now? I'm actively choosing to listen to your real music. Why are you degrading me
It's
by acting like I've been somewhere else doing something that I maybe haven't
it's
even
like
been doing?
accusatory. It's weirdly parallel with the Drake albums you had me listen to, where the tone is just like, bro, I'm meeting you where you're at. Why are you directing this at me right now? Like this is not what is going to further incentivize me to want to listen to your music because it's not a fun headspace to constantly be finger wagged at for not paying attention when I'm paying attention to the fact that you're telling me I'm not paying attention. What is it even
And
in reference to? You don't fucking know me, brother.
and all of that stuff, right? The pretentiousness that this album has, let's call it what it is.
It is. It
And
very much is.
the combination of pretentiousness, unkempt structure,
Mm.
and this whole album's presentation, I came up with a nice little turn of phrase for it that I think works pretty well. There's so much try hard simpleton shit on this album.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like a guy that really wants to make something really strange and ambitious and just like do the first instinct,
Mm-hmm.
just to do it because it's my art and I can make whatever I want. But then there's
Mm-hmm.
so much like try hard simpleton, simile and metaphor, and just malaise in how much this album is obsessed with its breakup aspect and the whole we're keeping the youth down, but also I'm the icon that's going to lift the youth up, and so many attempts to juggle so many different kinds of artistic persona on this. The forlorn lover, the hot on the scene, young up and coming rapper, the sage
Messianic figure.
messianic figure, sage wisdom on songs like The Passion, and but then there's also like the goofy stuff like George Jefferson male maleficence. Excuse me?
Just like the borderline incoherent in a way that I almost fucking admire. But the real fucking problem with this whole aspect of the record is that, like, how do you impress upon this kid that these ideas in his songs, they would be interesting if he talked about them? Instead, what you just said when you were just listing what qualities this album has, when you were just saying the things that were in it, that's how deep Jaden goes. There is no attempt to further that point than how you explained it to me just now. The fact that he is an icon, why does he think he's an icon, Jen? Well, it's because he's an icon. Why? Because he's going to lift up the youth. Why? Because he's an icon. It's maddening. It's maddening if you actually try to engage with what this album truly wants to engage with. And then if you try and turn your brain off and listen to it, you're just so bored. You have to be paying such close attention, and it just doesn't reward you enough for that. Like like especially in that back half. Like, oh my God, you have to tune out if you want to survive the final 20 minutes of this album and still make it out unscathed. And like for all of Sire's problems, I do think that there is like it lacks a certain unity, but I guess at the end of the day, I can't say that the sounds and the production on the first half, there is a vision here that could theoretically work even if it's not original. There's something there that if you took back the unbridled ego and actually gave him like a creative partner or a producer or something, even though he would never do that, obviously, because he so desperately wants to be a polymath Tyler the Creator. I can do literally everything. Look at how fucking impressive I am, yada, yada, yada. But when you go over to Iris, there's just so many fascinating ideas that become vapor instantly. Like you hear it and you're just like, oh, like the aforementioned way that the suite starts off with this fucking like piano ballad Evanescence shit. And it's like, you know what? Okay. And then it immediately segues into I. And I have to talk about the lyrics to this song. I is so fucking funny because this giant, massive, swelling song segues into I, and it just drops the melodrama and just goes into the most pedestrian trap beat you've ever heard, completely
Yup.
diffuses everything that he was building up, and then immediately he's doing the puffing up his chest, I'm the messianic, blah, 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 and then he's got lyrics like a lot of power in the click, like the Nephilim. Which, again, if you're at all familiar with like like historical and religious texts, that's a hell of a reference to drop. But there's also shit like the half-ass shit. I swear this level's unaccessible. I wonder if they'll understand the metaphors. He's actually on
Brother,
his real album being like, I wonder if people will understand me. I wonder if you're smart enough to understand what I'm talking about. And I'm like, buddy, even if you had something worth paying attention to on here, this is not how you loop people in. You're
the
insulting them from the jump. You're saying that you're inaccessible. Dude, I listened to the Swans albums that were made in the 80s and barely sound mastered. That's your music's not inaccessible. What are you talking about, dude?
the J. Cole taxes level bit on the second verse about uh like voting rights being stripped from felons, which like yeah, at least Jaden has a decent enough head on his shoulders that he can recognize stuff like that. And the courts are rigged is something that he says straight up on Sire. And I was like, yeah, you get
Okay.
it, but it's not the Illuminati.
No,
But,
it is he understands enough to know where to like aim how to recognize the problem, but in terms of what the problem is and how it affects people, it may as well not exist. It's not tangible. It's pure, it's like as close to sloganeering as I think I've heard as of late. But man, I will say, there's one moment on this album. One moment, not even a whole song, but one moment where I was just like, you know what? That was fucking cool. I liked that. It's K when the song drops out and the Clippers come in. And I'm
yeah,
sorry, that beat is fucking crazy.
the
It's
Clippers.
so it's a clipping fucking like beat. They would do. They would put that on one of their albums and it rocks. Like, does Jaden sound great over it? No. But honestly, he doesn't need to just because the beat holds him aloft. Like that part is awesome. I don't even care that some of the lyrics are fucking stupid just because when you do something that audacious, I'm like, all right, respect. You actually pulled that moment off. I when I listened to this back when it came out, I was just like, maybe like, not all of this is working. A lot of it's annoying, but like maybe at least musically we can finally like how is this album musically, Jen?
So you would think with the increased presence of the Jimi Hendrix influence on this album, Jimi Hendrix, um,
Batman, 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 Jimi Hendrix, Jimi Hendrix, Jimi Hendrix.
you would think with the increased presence of psychedelic rock influence on this that comes with the Iris character, which does have a slightly more of an aesthetic presence to it than the Sire character does. But no.
Mm-mm. It's if
Those
anything,
moments,
it's a flimsier concept.
it's a flimsier concept because the moments where we're fully with Iris are so few and far between. It doesn't even feel like a real album about a confrontation with the darker half when the
No.
darker half isn't even present for half of this album.
And like there's moments where it tries to be a bit more like colorful and rough shot and like punky. There's some parts on here where he's clearly aiming to ape horror in some respects. And like I know enough to get what he's going for. It's just that he never fucking gets there. Honestly, I find this album even more frustrating because it has way more potential to me than Sire. And it's not like I don't even know if I'd call it better because it's like less unified and more like roughshod in places and like messier. But like there is more interesting wrinkles in it, I guess, than there is in Sire.
Yeah, because I mean, you have moments like Got It and Fire Department,
Fire Department, yeah, yeah, yeah,
this weird 1-2 punch of interludes, which, first of all, R.I.P. Take Keith. Did not expect to
yeah,
hear that on this record.
yeah. Oh God, that
Um,
sucks. R.I.P.
Fire Department, like it's genuinely good. Like I love the DJ slide down. He's got a good flow on here, but this is just one of those moments where Jaden finds something that he can actually ride and does it for a minute and a half and then moves on to something longer and more rote and less interesting, like Mission, which, yeah, the hook is there, but the hook never goes away. I'm on a mission.
What? Honestly, Jaden is one of the most consistently limp hook writers I think I've ever paid like legit attention to in terms of like their artistry, I guess. Like, if he finds a good one, he will repeat it until it stops being good. It always happens. Like he'll have me for a little bit. Every fucking song will be like a minute worth of like, all right. And then you're like, but where are we going to go? And the answer is always nowhere. The answer is that these songs plateau almost instantly. I don't think that Jaden understands song structure on a level that is so fundamental that's just like he just knows that there are supposed to be choruses and verses. That's literally it. That's all that the actual formation of these songs really contain.
The the biggest, most maximalist stretch on this is the Blackout and Pain back to
Yep.
back. Both songs that are beyond 6 minutes long and do this thing that Jaden does where he just exhausts every possible idea that a song could have to the point where none of the individual parts feel really that they have a purpose distinct from the others. It becomes too amorphous for
Mm.
any of the individual components of it to have any identity. And I know what this is. He's chasing sicko mode on
Yes.
both of these songs, on several songs on this
This
album.
whole thing is
This
very
album,
Travis Scott.
yeah, this one owes a lot more to Astro World than Iris
Hmm.
did.
Hmm.
And what's interesting about that is that the more that Jaden leans into psychedelic trap, psychedelic rock, the less interesting he becomes because he's going to continue doing that to the point that Cool Tape Volume 3 is almost exclusively doing this kind of trip hop, psychedelic rock adjacent stuff. And not to skip ahead, but that's the most boring that it gets, is that ironically enough, the more that Jaden streamlines himself, the less interesting that he gets because even with focus, he can't he can't write a sticky song. Like he just
No,
can't.
no, he can't.
He doesn't have it in him to write anything that I can stand to remember, even
And
as he gets painfully monotonous, like on Icon or like Mission. I don't remember that because it's actually stuck in my head. I remember it for the meme.
yeah, basically, it's that memes are kind of the only way his hooks can prevail, just because actually repeating them becomes a little bit too annoying in and of itself. It's doubly frustrating because I can't really trace the lineage of Jaden from album to album because his progression is also amorphous as an artist. I don't really understand his evolution just because it seems like he didn't really evolve. He just started using different tools. And I mean, like, okay, that's a start or something, but like, there needs to be a difference between Bastard and Goblin. There needs to be a difference between All American Trash and Saturation 1. There needs to be a leap that lets me know that you are still not done and that you are still sharpening yourself. I mean, for fuck's sake, there's heavy differences between the Saturation albums, and like those are still uniformly structured the same way. I just I wish I could understand, I guess, why Jaden feels the need to like make his sound so wide other, well then I guess that doesn't even make sense because it's just to chase the coattails of the artist that he really likes. And I understand the appeal of that, and to some extent you could boil down like even respectable ventures in art to doing that. Like two of my favorite bands, two of my favorite rock bands of all time are Ween and King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. And do you know what they do? They make their entire careers about pastiching different shit. Like that's their whole thing. But the thing that makes that different is that when I want to listen to a psychedelic pop album and I go to Ween's White Pepper, I am in no point ever thinking, I wish I was listening to Sergeant Pepper right now, or I wish I was listening to Odyssey and Oracle instead right now, or XTC, or whatever the fuck. You have to differentiate yourself somehow, and it can't just be basically by brute force. He just uses so many tools that he forces himself to be unique because no one else has all of these tools. It's just a matter of logistics that he's creative. And that's probably the most insulting thing I think I've ever said about an artist, and I feel kind of bad about it, but I'm also not wrong.
Like you can see how easily this concept is supposed to work.
Yes.
But Jaden just cannot get out of his own way, cannot stand to trim the fat on anything, and just keeps getting in the way of his own concepts having any meaning to them because he keeps repeating the same kinds of moves over and over again. And so it makes the stories that these albums could tell feel like they don't really mean anything because
No.
every album ends with a Sire and Iris both dying and coming back to life, or somebody else dying and then not being dead, and then somebody else is going to come back, and it's just none of it means anything
No.
because Jaden, Iris, and Sire are not different from each other. Compare this to somebody like Tyler, the Creator, who at this point has been able to manage his image album to album so well that I associate like videos and interview clips with the music because
Yes.
they represent so much the time period that the artist takes place in. And part of that, yeah, is the performance of it all. Part of it is that Tyler's a little bit of a drama queen who does it for the Vine. But
Hmm.
that says something and that adds something.
I don't, that actually, I think that is the single most damning thing about this discography at the end of the day is that I walk away from it. I don't know anything about Jaden Smith. I've listened
I
to
know he
more.
likes psilocybin a
Yes.
lot.
Yes.
What's the
But
pull up Dracula flow? I'm on a lot of drugs.
psilocybin, huh?
I'm on a lot of drugs. A lot.
It's, if you listen to 3 hours plus worth of music from someone and you leave that experience not knowing anything about them or anything more about them, like I know the kinds of music that Jaden likes and that he aspires to be like, but as like a person with like thoughts and feelings, I've got nothing. And that's really like that is so much more important than everything else at the end of the day. I mean, like, think about how many artists have just become great by merit of their songwriting alone. Like, do you really think that the first fucking 15 Bob Dylan albums before Blood on the Tracks were really like all that sonically different from each other? No, it was a guy with a fucking guitar. Like, and he just sang. Like, it was just his words that compelled people. I'm not saying Jaden Smith has to be Bob Dylan. I'm just saying that the threshold for this kind of thing is far, far lower than most people would be willing to admit. And you can be compelling. You can even make the fact that you're not like great or traditionally like good sounding. Like, I mean, think about people like Isaac Brock from Modest Mouse. Do you think that dude grew up and had a bunch of people telling him that he sang well? No, of course he didn't. But he still went on and made an indie rock band where he could be like, ah, and he made it work. There is no limitation that I feel Jaden has to work around, and thus there's no effort, and thus there is no struggle. I'm not saying that art has to be indicative of a struggle, but it does have to be indicative of an idea or a conflict. I get gestures on these albums. I get like just vague notions of problems that exist in Jaden Smith's orbit, but never anything that actually affects him in a material or immaterial, frankly, way. Which is funny because you know who I've been listening to the past 2 weeks preparing for this? Just because I was curious.
Will
The
Smith?
other Nepo baby, Willow, who,
Ah,
let me just say this, is a much more interesting artist. And I don't even say that to say that like, oh, she's not great, but like she's got like no, I'm willing to put my foot down and say that I think that Willow is a genuinely quite exciting new artist because I mean, she's the polymath that Jaden wishes he was. She's out here
that
doing pop punk with Travis
anxiety.
Barker and doing art pop and shit, and also has like some genuinely good like radio hits and stuff with her band The Anxiety, and like some newer albums and stuff that are like just genuinely like, oh, this is good. Like you put everything into this, and there's like thought and there's ambition and there's like real human emotions you can relate to on it.
And she was able to, because here's the insane thing, she was even able to, as an artist, give herself a more meaningful transition into an adult musician by in her early days, like using that stuff that she made when she was a kid that her dad forced her to make. She would like sample it and cover it as like metal songs. I remember, I'll never forget this one video of her like shaving her head on stage after doing Whip My Hair.
Yeah. And fucking, she's got this album that I've listened to like a little bit of that I have been like, I was like, okay, she really is like an artist. And that's her album from, I think it was 2023, 2024, Empathogen, which has a load of fantastic songs. She's on here doing fucking features with Saint Vincent and John Batiste. Like, people who actually work really well with her, but also it's like she can do art pop, she can do pop punk, she can just do straight up rock, like, and she does it all well. I think she does it very, very well. And the fact that you're going to people like Travis Barker, that means you know your shit. That means you know what you want to sound like, and you're not concerned with being seen as the guy who can do everything. Art's a collaborative thing. Like, even if you're a type of person who just you think you're the polymath, but it's like, dude, you get your ideas from other people. It's a collaborative process. Like, no art is made completely in a vacuum. You shouldn't be focused too much on that because it's just going to limit you at the end of the day. And I feel like that nothing illustrates that better than the fact that Jaden's career is Jaden's career and Willow's career is Willow's career.
So let's get to the last album, Cool
Yeah,
Tapes. Cool Tapes
yeah.
Volume 3, Cool Tapes Volume 3, Day Tripper Edition. I You piss me off. I I can't believe you told me to listen to both of these. This God.
You made me listen to
So
all three Drake albums. I'm drinking your tears. Delicious.
so Cool Tapes, here's the thing. Jaden, ironically enough, gave me a perfect example of something that we've talked about on this show before, which is this weird obsession that we had in the early 2020s with double albums that
Mm.
started with, I don't know, like Dangerous, the double album was a big success, but there were people doing it before that that were like getting success off of it. So, and especially in hip hop, there was this thing that started
Mm.
happening where you would do your album drop and then somewhere from 24 hours to 365 days later, you would drop another album and do a whole thing that's like, oh boy, I surprise dropped another album to draw attention to both projects. It's very stream gamey, it's very cynical, and I hated talking about it every single time that it happened because
Because you didn't know how to. Like, how to,
it
like, where
made
does
talking
the
about
art.
actual music feel secondary to talking about marketing strategy. And I
Yes.
hated it.
Sucked.
And occasionally you would get people that would do genuinely interesting things with this concept and make albums that could be companions to each other. Like Clipping did, or like Eric Church did, or like there are people that knew how to do that and knew how to capitalize on that when that was the move that it seemed like every big record label was trying to make. But the thing about Cool Tapes and Cool Tapes, the Day Tripper edition, the director's cut, let's call it,
Yeah.
of Cool Tapes Volume 3, is that Jaden has lost all sense of ambition in album construction. And the thing is, that is not a red flag for me in this case,
Necessarily. Yeah.
because promising to streamline is, that could be a sign of improvement. That could be a sign that maybe his artistic sensibilities have become more refined. He knows what kind of music he wants to make now. He's going to keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah. No.
Except
Except that he doesn't.
no,
Except he doesn't.
actually, because okay, these albums, Cool Tapes, starts out in a promising way, although
Yeah.
circa 2015 is one of the worst examples of my biggest complaint with Jaden Smith as a writer, which is just that this kid has no interest in wordplay. He knows
God.
that he has to write rhymes, but he has no interest in writing wordplay. It's
Every
such a
bar sounds
bizarre.
like a chore. It sounds like a homework assignment that you do for poetry class.
Oh God, exactly. There's no interest in wordplay. It's just all about syllables, but not
Yeah.
anything like interesting about it. But you get Falling for You, which has an interesting start to it because you get that like cutesy little intro, but then you get that if you don't call me, I'll jump off the roof. And I heard that and I said, okay, wait a second. Now you've got me.
There's an idea there.
Because are you gonna do the thing where you're writing the like insidiously forlorn's ex-lover thing? No.
No.
Immediately
Gone.
no.
Does
There's
not
not
develop.
a single thing of kayfabe. It's just roof rhymes with you.
And I mean, like in this day and age, it's like one of the biggest albums this year is the new fucking Olivia Rodrigo album, which is like a flawless narrative, just sort of sequencing of incredible pop songs that does not sacrifice its narrative or its pop appeal in doing so. So this is not an impossible ask. This is not something that I feel like is, you know, completely beyond your reach. Even for Jaden, I feel like if you sat down and you actually committed yourself, do you know what Jaden's writing feels like to me? So you're also a writer. I'm sure you're familiar with this. Back in your earlier years when you were trying your hand at some form of creative writing or another, and you have to inevitably get to the point where you're writing the bridge between ideas that you find more interesting. Basically, you have this thing, but you gotta have them meet, and everything in between those things ends up feeling obligatory. It ends up feeling like you didn't want to write it. And so, how you get better is that you learn to love writing everything. You have to find a way, you have to find an angle to appreciate what you're doing. It sounds like that never happened for him because everything sounds like it was just like, ugh, I have to find a rhyme to fit the scheme. Ugh. And it's like, I just don't like this is an art form that is about this, man. Like it's about this. I can't follow you here, man. I can't do it.
This album is really boring.
So boring. And long. 50 minutes, man. Like
It's
for how many
long
ideas it has, 50 minutes is just insane.
and it just so quickly exhausts any kind of song in its first act because you get, the intros on these albums basically don't count because they're trying to be big, grandiose showcases. So it doesn't really like feel worth it to try to compare them to each other or even to like what kinds of song is Jaden Smith good at writing because he's not good at writing these big bombastic intros, but he keeps insisting on doing it. But they're not going to be a huge part of his oeuvre anyway, so who cares? I can deal with the fact that circa 2015 is kind of mid, at least it's only 2 minutes.
Yeah,
Falling for You is a potentially interesting idea that fails to materialize. Rainbow Bap is a rap showcase that's too long and too monotonous. And then Lucy, despite being only 2 minutes long, exhausts any appeal that this could have had as a pivot to psychedelic pop. I can't believe how quickly I soured on the idea of Jaden Smith being able to do psychedelia and being able to do, evocative imagery. But I'm so tired of being on the hills at sunset doing drugs with you, dude.
He's
I've done
he's
it
that guy who gets
enough.
so into psychedelics and just won't stop talking about it, and you're just like, cool, man. Like, do you want to like hang out somewhere else next time? And he's just like, oh, you want to chill and like, fucking do some mushrooms with me? And you're like, dude, I have a job. I need, please leave me alone.
And
That's the vibe here.
the album is supposed to be a breakup album because it starts with this whole circa 2015 thing, but it's not really about that. It has no focus. This
None.
album, just like Sire, just like Iris, it doesn't really have any focus on an idea. It just has different ideas that it wants to move around and occasionally flirt with, which can make the sequencing on this really strange. Like the move from Lucy to Everything,
Yeah.
doing this I'm on top and I'm in love right after this song about an imaginary girl is really weird. And then doing In the Hills, my granny was at Woodstock. Don't you think that's cool? God. No, I don't. You have interesting lineage that you could explore. I don't care that your grandmother went to Woodstock. That's not a pickup line. What do you think you're doing?
This is what happens when you grow up and a viable pickup line is, Hi, I'm Jaden Smith, and you don't have to be creative, and that's all you have to do. This is what happens when you have no friction in your life whatsoever. Like when you're just, yeah, again, it's the fucking silver spoon of thing. And it's just like there are plenty of artists who came from money, who come from, privilege and all of that stuff. But there's always something in their story that incentivizes them to do what they do. There is like, has there ever been a point where Jaden has ever been like, yes, this is the reason that I do what I do, beyond just wanting to make music, which is admirable. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying that like it's like Drake. Your music above all other things needs one thing: stakes. You have to be able to be invested in the music you're listening to in some way or another. That is the broadest possible definition for appeal that art can have. And this doesn't really hit the mark.
It's just so, it just wanders.
It
The
wanders.
album dilly dallies. It
It's full of
doesn't
shenanigans.
chicanery. It's just full of
It's
time
notions.
wasting.
It's just notions.
It's full of time wasting moments like Young in Love. God, for a guy who so clearly has weird fetishes, this guy writes boring music about sex.
Who has weird fetishes and also doesn't seem to understand the definition of the word fetish in his own
It took him
music.
3 tries to use the definition of the word fetish that I can accept as grammatically correct.
Yes, it's not even like it's not definitionally or grammatically correct. It's so fucking confusing, man.
What is World of Warcraft fetish? With your weird pants and your World of Warcraft fetishes? That's a funny turn of phrase, though. I'm never going to
It's
forget
no,
with your
I'm gonna
weird
get
pants
amusement
and your
out of it
World
for
of
the rest of
Warcraft.
my life.
That phrase, with your weird pants and your World of Warcraft fetishes, like that's actually a decent diss
I
because
think that
it's
you're
so
killer with
weird.
your floppy hair. Oh,
But then he just says stuff like, I'm on a roller coaster and I don't know what to do.
just was that? What do you mean? What do you?
That song Cabin Fever is one of the few times where he actually manages to strike up a swing and groove,
Yeah.
but Do you know the trick that I played on myself by enjoying this song?
Oh no.
I was listening to the Day Trippers edition earlier today to prepare for this, and I realized that one of the few Jaden Smith songs I actually found myself kind of liking, Cabin Fever, is a complete ripoff of another song that I actually like. Uh, okay, there's a vocal harmony on this that is in the same key as the song Posthumous by a guy named Gus Dapperton, who had a couple pandemic era TikTok hits. He was on a remix of that song Super Lonely with that girl Benny, as they both got
Right.
big on
Yeah,
TikTok, and he's got a
yeah.
verse on there. He's
Okay.
got a record that I really like called Orca. That's a lot of like really avant-garde singer-songwriter,
Okay.
Lemon Twigs, but a little bit more Lindsey Buckingham type stuff.
Okay.
And it's a decent album. And my favorite song on there, Posthumous, has this great vocal harmony that Jaden just ripped whole cloth for this song. And I was like, dang, this sounds good. And then I remembered that Gus Dapperton song exists. And I was tricked. I've been deceived. How could
It's
ye?
It's also just not a great look when you are like half of the substance of your records is talking about how like original and iconic and cool you are, and you can't like manage to back up any. Like that's the thing is that like he's clearly also laying into his own ego, and like that is part of it. He's not unaware of the fact that he's making his music like quasi narcissistic. But the problem with that is that he again, this is all aping Kanye mainly. The problem with this is Kanye had the tunes to back up the ego for a really long time. Like, he came out the gate with shit like late registration. That gets you in people's good graces. That's going to let them know that they can put a little bit of faith in you. You have to establish that precedent before you move forward. Else, it just kind of sounds like you're bigging yourself up for no fucking reason. And it also just sounds like a hollow lie, which it kind of invariably is.
I will say though, that somehow, some way, Jaden Smith hit me with one last surprise and gave me the very last song on this album,
Ah,
Boys and Girls,
ah,
which I can only describe as what if a young rapper tried to make an Andy Grammer song?
wow. That's a deep cut. Holy
That's what
shit.
Boys and Girls is. And I cannot
Wow.
believe I can't believe how much the novelty of that elated me as this album came to a close. I was like, holy shit, he still found a way. Because after the birth of Sire, which by all means should be where this album ends,
Oh,
he comes
yes.
out with one last completely bizarre turn and is making this like protest album about how the children are the future.
You know, I'm
It's
gonna admit
so
I didn't
weird.
I would have never made this comparison both because it's well, frankly, it's a bit of a smart it's too smart of a comparison for me to make. And secondly, I'm so checked out at this point that I just probably didn't even it probably just it is so difficult. Like I don't feel like we have impressed enough upon our listeners how difficult it is to sit through these like the cool tapes ones. Like it's kind of like when you're in class and you don't want to be and you have to stare at the clock on the wall and time moves like 15 times slower. I can't look at my iPhone listening to it because it makes time feel slower. I have to not look at how the song is progressing so that it feels like it's happening to me quicker.
It's Cool Tapes is really, it makes sense that this is the psychedelic album because so much of this album is just a slow, limp slog.
And like, people like Lil Yachty, they're pulling it off. Like there's a good way to like
Because
do
they're
this.
putting the rock in it.
Yeah,
You have to
that's
rock.
that's helpful. That's really fucking helpful. And it's all the more baffling when it's like you have an incredibly talented sister right there who's making cool rock music who could probably do a lot for you if you would get out of your own way. Can't do that though. Can't concede. It has to be his genius though.
Both of the Smiths, Jaden and Willow, spent their early career basically doing whatever their parents told them to do
Yeah,
to
yeah.
establish themselves as media presences.
hmm
And that, mm, mm, there's something there if you wanted to mine that for drama.
Oh,
But
abs no, there is like if you go back in time, particularly around the After Earth era, and you like look at that press run and you listen to the way that Will Smith talks about his own children, he describes his progeny as his family business. It's like these kids didn't have a choice as to whether or not they were in the industry or not. They were just put there. So I understand why Jaden is the way that he is because he's been told that he's got to be all of these things and he's been around all these people his entire life. And so he gets to that age and of course he thinks, I guess I got to throw my hand in the ring. And you're not going to get two ultra talented musician kids at once. So I mean, like, yeah, of course. It just makes sense. But boy, don't like like don't do this to your children. Don't do that. That's a terrible way to shape an individual. It's going to damage them profoundly.
seemingly the only real idea that Jaden has throughout his discography is that he wants to use his music as a way to emotionally reconnect with some long lost lover, and that just leads to a lot of like icky cloying.
And just vague. Like I don't understand what led this like to this or what it is about. It's like how do you make a breakup album where you don't talk about the breakup? You're just talking about the after effects. You're just talking about like how it affects you.
Yeah, you're just talking about how like, oh, I'm in Paris and I miss you. I miss when I got to take you to Japan. Ugh.
It's like there's supposed to be another part of the song attached to that where you like 4 minutes you like elaborate on what led you to that point or something. But even the cat's like, nah, not Jaden
She's
Smith.
got she's got nothing to say about this one.
And you know what? I don't blame you, girl. I don't think I have anything else either.
How do I score this? The insidiousness of the discography breakdown of it all is really giving you a leg up. Because
That's what I figured.
if you had just told me to do Siren Iris, I would have been like,
Yeah, I
that
knew
was
that
funny.
wasn't enough. I knew that wasn't enough.
It really became like I really felt tested by Cool Tape. And I listened to the Sunset tapes, which we didn't even talk about because it comes out in between Sire and Iris. But there's nothing, absolutely nothing to talk about with that record.
No,
Nothing at all.
that's probably the
Um,
worst thing he's ever made, if I'm perfectly honest. There's just like literally nothing to say about it.
And so the fact that I had to listen to like God 4 hours of this is I did go and listen to the Day Trippers edition and listen to some of those extra songs, and somehow he saved the worst because Bye I think is the worst song across the whole thing. Um it just sounds
Yeah.
awful. It's the
Yeah,
one
it's
time where the
no
production is straight up just
bad.
in my eye poor,
Yeah.
bad, unlistenable. The
No,
only
correct.
time that Jaden's production doesn't sound on point for what he's at least trying to do. But anyway, wow. I really do think because of how much of a test of endurance that this was, even though the music itself isn't, it's
Yeah.
never as like individually bad
Yeah.
as a bad album that we would have thrown at each other for like a record club or something like that.
It is actually the mirror opposite of the Drake dilemma, where it's like the person behind the music is so much more interesting than the music, and here it's completely the opposite. It's that even at its most boring, the music is so much more interesting than Jaden ever is.
So I think I'm gonna give the Jaden Smith discography a very passionate four
I That
because
feels right to me.
yeah, the like the music mostly not actually being that abrasively bad is kind of the thing that keeps this from being a five bagger.
Yep, 100%. I completely agree. That's probably what I would give it as well if I were rating it, frankly.
So
So, as I said when we did our preliminary round, this round to me, this is not about who wins. This is about one thing and one thing alone. This is about vengeance. So, I have been thinking, I've been cooking about what I wanted to do because I remember months and months and months ago in a previous episode where I held my little red button and it was my good pick on that week. And you were like, "Well, it's the good pick. You can't, give me something that is going to make me suffer. Can't I? Can't I still give you something good that causes you pain?" And I thought about all the ways in which I could make that happen. So, for my first foray into this, I'm actually going to give you a choice. Going to give you the decision. You're going to pick this path. Do you want to walk down the road that leads to physical pain, or do you want to walk down the road that leads to emotional pain? You'll get both. Don't worry.
I all right, good to know. Good to know. That helps.
And I will say the emotional pain will probably be shorter, but
Let's
the physical pain will probably be more complicated.
let's do let's do the physical pain. Let's see what you've got cooking.
Oh, fucking K.
Oh boy.
I love me some music, as no doubt we prove every single week on this YouTube channel, obviously. But I have a bit of a reputation for enjoying the most extreme of extreme music. Even amongst our friends who tend to enjoy music that's a little bit further than the left of the dial, I tend to crank it a little bit louder, so to speak. And there is no genre of music that will use and abuse you quite as extensively as mathcore. A genre you are only passingly really familiar with just because of
Yeah.
Converge albums that we've reviewed this year, the newer ones. But that's the thing. Converge, very specifically, their earlier stuff is a little bit more mathcore oriented. Their later stuff, it's a bit of a hodgepodge, a bit of a mix of different things that, are still already within your wheelhouse. And obviously, we already talked about Knocked Loose on this show. So, in order to take it a step further, I'm giving you, Jen, the mathcore starter pack. You are going to listen to these albums and you are going to tell me about them. But they're albums from different artists and different places within this insanely diverse genre that only the brave are willing to tread into. So, you are going to listen to Meth Witch's Indwell. You are going
Oh
to listen
boy.
to Every Time I Die's Low Teens. You are going to listen to Blossom by Pupil Slicer. And you are going to listen to Dissociation by the Dillinger Escape Plan.
Oh boy. This is big. This is big jams and tea magic coming in my direction.
Oh, yeah. So there you go. Have fun.
So for my pick, I've been learning a lot from you on this show about survival horror. From Luigi's Mansion to Silent Hill. You've been giving me the introductory course to survival horror in many respects. And I've really appreciated that because it's been a genre that I didn't really know how to get into because, well, there's just a lot of it.
High
And
threshold too. They're an unfriendly series of games typically.
yeah, they're unfriendly types of games, so it's difficult to kind of will yourself into one. But something that happened to me recently was Jared, my friend and neighbor, introduced me to a little game called Resident Evil 2, the remake.
Yes.
And I've been
Amazing
playing
game. Adore
and
that
I've been
game.
playing some of it.
It's great.
Admittedly, I haven't played any more of it in a little bit, but I do want to get back on it and finish it.
Hmm.
I've been playing it. I've been really enjoying the Resident Evil 2 remake so far. And I know that there's a new Resident Evil movie coming out.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that.
Zach Kreger, our
Hmm.
boy.
Call me.
And so, something that I thought I should do for this show in order to keep up with the tradition is learn about the original texts in the way that you taught me to. Because the first time that I went to Silent Hill was with the Silent Hill movies. What better way to learn more about Resident Evil than to watch the Resident Evil movies together?
Oh, God.
So we're gonna watch the Paul W.S. Anderson Resident Evil films.
You know better than to bring my father into this.
Also, that's what happened. Okay, so many more things make sense about you.
Oh, all of them.
All of them.
Morgan just did this. Oh, God. Oh.
Next time on Jen and Jake's Bizarre Affray, we enter the survival horrors of mathcore and Paul W.S. Anderson's films.